Before science, before the hum of hospital machines, there was only silence, and the question that has echoed through every age of humanity, is it a boy or a girl? In the flicker of candlelight, women would gather around an expectant mother, their whispers weaving prophecy. One would say, "She's carrying high, it must be a boy." Another would answer, "No, she's craving sweets, it's surely a girl." The wedding ring would dangle on a string above the belly, its sway believed to reveal the truth. If it spun in circles, a girl. If it swung back and forth, a boy. These were the wives' tales for gender, ancient rituals of guessing, believing, and hoping. They were never just stories about babies. They were stories about our desperate need to know. Long before there were ultrasound scans or chromosomes, there was faith disguised as certainty. Every culture had its own version. The Chinese lunar calendar, the baking soda wives' tale for gender, the heart rate wives' tale, and even the hairline wives' tale whispered from one generation to the next. We call them old wives' tales for gender prediction, but they were really psychological rituals, a way to feel power in the face of powerlessness. Pregnancy is a mystery wrapped in biology and fate. To those living centuries ago, it was almost divine, the creation of life, hidden from view, unfolding inside the body of another. The unknown has always made humans uneasy. And so, we built stories to make the unknown less terrifying. But beneath the humor and curiosity, these tales reveal something deeper. They expose our timeless hunger to predict what cannot be predicted. We may laugh at them today, yet we perform their modern descendants. Gender reveal ideas that explode in colors. Digital quizzes promising accuracy, and heartbeat predictions that echo superstition in scientific disguise. Why do we keep believing? Perhaps it's not the truth we seek, but the illusion of knowing. To predict is to pretend the universe can be controlled, to tame chaos with the comfort of a guess. So we ask again, with all our progress and all our technology, have we really changed, or are we still those ancient storytellers using myths to silence the sound of uncertainty? The tale begins not with science, but with belief. In the beginning, before the written word, and before the microscope, humanity lived by signs. Every shift in the wind, every movement of the stars, every tremor of the body meant something. The world was a living text, and humans were desperate to read it. Among the most sacred of all mysteries was birth. The arrival of a child meant survival, continuation, hope, but it was also danger, pain, and risk. In that fragile space between life and death, people reached for stories to give meaning to the unknown. From those stories came what we now call wives' tales for pregnancy, gender, myths that turned random chance into patterns of fate. In ancient China, the lunar gender chart was consulted like scripture. It claimed to reveal whether a mother would have a boy or a girl based on her age and the moon phase at conception. In Greece, philosophers believed that a strong right side of the body favored the birth of a male, while the left predicted a female. The Romans recorded their own rules. They believed the position of the fetus, or even the way a mother's complexion changed, could tell nature's secret. But these were not just old wives' tales for baby gender. They were reflections of the cultures that created them. In patriarchal societies, where lineage passed through sons, predicting a boy became a matter of prestige. Midwives and elders who predicted correctly gained reverence, and those who didn't blamed the gods. In some African and indigenous traditions, however, the birth of a girl was seen as a blessing, a bringer of fertility and peace. There, a prediction wasn't about control, but about harmony. Every culture crafted its own system of certainty. A ring on a string, the baking soda wives' tale for gender, where a mother's urine fizzed or flattened to declare fate. The wives' tales for gender heart rate, where a baby's faster heartbeat meant girl, slower meant boy. These practices were born not from ignorance, but from imagination. The same imagination that painted gods into the sky and spirits into the trees. In a world without ultrasound, belief became a survival tool. When you couldn't measure, you mythologized. When you couldn't control, you created ritual. The early wives' tales for gender gave the illusion of understanding, a soft shield against the terror of randomness. But there was also comfort in the storytelling itself. These tales were passed from mother to daughter, whispered in kitchens, exchanged under moonlight. They gave women who were often excluded from scientific discourse a form of knowledge that belonged to them. In a sense, wives' tales for gender prediction were a silent rebellion, women making sense of their own bodies in a world that rarely listened. Across continents, the same desire appeared in different forms. The Celts studied hairlines and belly shapes. The hairline wives' tale for gender was simple yet symbolic. A straight line promised a boy, a swirl, a girl. In India, the tilt of a mother's belly or the glow of her skin carried predictions. In Arabia, the strength of the baby's kick meant masculine energy. In Japan, if a woman craved sour foods, it was said to be a boy. Sweet foods, a girl. Each myth a mirror, reflecting not nature but culture. The deeper truth is that these rituals were never meant to discover, they were meant to endure. They transformed fear into folklore, biology into belief. To predict was to participate in the divine, to imagine a place in the great order of things. Today, we might laugh at the absurdity of the old wives' tale for gender, the idea that the direction of a ring or the taste of food could reveal chromosomes. But when stripped of their strangeness, these tales are reminders of our oldest human instinct, to tell stories when silence feels unbearable. For every civilization, birth was not only physical, it was spiritual. It marked the threshold between the known and the unknown. And every threshold invites myth. Even now, when technology shows us what the ancients could never see, the old voices whisper still, carry high, it's a boy. Carry low, it's a girl. The rituals survive in modern disguise, memes, quizzes, and videos claiming to test your baby's gender. They speak to something deep within us that science alone cannot satisfy. The desire to know before we're meant to know. Because to predict is to believe that the world is not random, that meaning exists, even in mystery. And so, the tales endure, not because they are true, but because they are human. The human mind was not built for uncertainty. We are creatures of pattern, forever drawing lines between the stars. When thunder strikes after prayer, we think the heavens answered. When a woman craves chocolate and later births a girl, we think the craving was a sign. This is not foolishness, it is survival. The mind evolved not to see truth, but to see meaning. Psychologists call this patternicity, our tendency to find order in chaos. It is what made our ancestors see faces in clouds and gods in lightning. To see connection is safer than to see randomness, because randomness is unbearable. If everything is chance, then nothing is in our control. And so, we invent systems, wives' tales for gender, rituals for luck, omens for fate. We crave the illusion that the universe leaves hints, that reality can be read like a secret code. The mind whispers, if I can predict, I can prepare. If I can prepare, I can protect. The wives' tale for gender is one of the simplest expressions of this deeper truth. A pregnant mother, anxious about the unknown, looks for signs. Her heart races. The baby's heartbeat wives' tale for gender becomes a clue. Her belly feels different. Perhaps the hairline wives' tale for gender offers an answer. She performs the wives' tales for gender ring, suspending a thread above her stomach, watching its movement as though destiny itself were swinging before her. She knows it's not scientific, yet she wants to believe, because belief reduces fear. Psychology calls this confirmation bias, the tendency to notice what agrees with our expectations and ignore what doesn't. If the heart rate wives' tale for gender seems to work once, it becomes proof. If it fails, we forget. We rewrite memory to preserve meaning. It's not deception, it's protection. The mind would rather live in a coherent story than a chaotic truth. Even today, these stories echo through modern rituals, wives' tales for gender quizzes online, scientific TikToks about belly shape, and baking soda wives' tale for gender videos promising accuracy. In a world flooded with information, the oldest human impulse still survives, the urge to find certainty amid noise. But there's a darker side to prediction. When we begin to see patterns everywhere, we surrender critical thought. The same cognitive habits that gave rise to wives' tales for gender prediction also fuel superstition, conspiracy, and ideology. We build worlds out of patterns, then worship the illusion that we've uncovered truth. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that humans cannot live without illusion, that we need myths the way plants need sunlight. To strip away all illusion would be to face the abyss. Perhaps this is why, even surrounded by data, we invent new rituals disguised as logic. The wives' tales for gender, heart rate, or baking soda wives' tale for gender might seem harmless. But beneath them lies the same psychology that drives stock market speculation, political tribalism, and even war. We see patterns in randomness and believe they mean something. We form identities around those meanings and we defend them fiercely. To predict is to impose order. To be wrong is to confront chaos. So we cling to our predictions, not because they are correct, but because they make us feel alive. There's a moment every parent knows, the moment before knowing. That heartbeat on the monitor, that waiting for the doctor's words, that breath before the reveal. In that moment, time stretches and thought dissolves. You are suspended between two futures. And in that liminal space, the old wives' tales for gender become a way to fill the silence. We imagine the child before they arrive, a face, a voice, a destiny. To know the gender, even by myth, is to make the future feel more real. It gives the mind something to hold on to. But there is something profound hiding in this simplicity. Every prediction reveals not the truth about the baby, but the truth about us, about our anxiety, our hope, our desire for order. Psychologists studying superstition find that rituals increase when people feel powerless. During wars, pandemics, or economic crises, superstition spikes. When control slips away, belief takes its place. The same pattern holds for pregnancy, a time of vulnerability, awe, and fear. So it's no wonder that pregnancy wives' tales for gender persist across time. They are psychological anchors, fragile, but comforting. We are creatures haunted by uncertainty. To predict is to rebel against fate. To invent a story is to imagine we can rewrite the script. So maybe the wives' tales for baby gender were never meant to tell the truth about the child. Maybe they were meant to tell the truth about our need to believe. When a mother ties a ring to a string and watches it move, she is not seeking data, she is seeking peace. When a grandmother repeats a story from her grandmother, she is not preserving superstition, she is preserving meaning. We predict because we are human. We believe because belief is softer than chaos. And in every myth of prediction, from the stars to the womb, we find the same silent prayer. Let me know what's coming. Let me be ready. Every myth is a mirror. When we look closely, we realize it doesn't show us the world, it shows us ourselves. The old wives' tales for gender might seem like harmless folklore, but hidden within them is a psychological map of human values. What we desire, what we fear, and what we refuse to confront. Take the simplest example. If you crave sweets, it's a girl. If you crave salty foods, it's a boy. To the modern mind, this sounds like fantasy. But beneath it lies an ancient story about gender and identity. Sweetness, softness, delicacy, these have long been associated with femininity. Saltiness, strength, vigor, symbols of masculinity. Our cravings become metaphors, and those metaphors become myths. In this way, wives' tales for pregnancy gender were not really about biology, they were about philosophy. They encoded the social expectations of what boy and girl meant in a given culture. The predictions weren't random, they were moral statements dressed as superstition. In patriarchal societies, where inheritance and power flowed through men, predicting a boy was seen as good fortune. A male child promised strength, legacy, and security. When an old wives' tale for gender pointed toward a boy, it didn't just soothe curiosity, it validated social order. A girl, by contrast, was often seen as a gentler blessing, a source of beauty, emotion, and care. In both predictions, value systems were quietly reaffirmed. The wives' tales for gender ring or the heart rate wives' tale for gender were not tools of science, they were rituals that reflected what people wanted to be true. A world where destiny followed rules, where meaning could be decoded from the shape of a belly. In cultures where female life was sacred, these same tales took a different tone. In certain matrilineal tribes, the birth of a girl was celebrated as continuity of the earth, the return of fertility, the rebirth of ancestors. They're the same old wives' tales for baby gender celebrated femininity as divine creation, not secondary life. These contrasts remind us that myths are never universal truths, they are reflections of the societies that invent them. Consider the wives' tales for gender heart rate. Faster heartbeat means a girl, slower means a boy. This rule appears everywhere across continents and centuries, yet always with different emotional weight. In some cultures, the faster heartbeat was seen as vitality, a sign of abundance. In others, it represented fragility. The same pattern, different meaning. The science never changed, only the story. This reveals something profound about human psychology. We don't use myths to explain the world. We use myths to explain ourselves to the world. Every wives' tale for gender prediction is an attempt to bring order to emotion. The unknown child becomes a canvas for projection. Parents imagine who the child will be long before they arrive, strong or gentle, rebellious or calm, protector or nurturer. The prediction becomes prophecy, and prophecy becomes expectation. But this act of prediction has consequences. The myth creates identity before birth. It assigns meaning before the person can even exist. And so, gender myths are not innocent. They shape how we see, how we raise, how we love. To say boys sit higher or girls steal your beauty is to reinforce invisible hierarchies. It's to teach that beauty, strength, sweetness, and power belong to fixed categories. The old wives' tales for gender prediction tell us not about babies, but about bias. Yet there's something hauntingly beautiful in this realization. It means these myths are records of our evolution, both cultural and psychological. They show how we've tried to make peace with the unknown. Even the absurd tales like the baking soda wives' tale for gender, or all the old wives' tales for gender quizzes, reveal that our deepest questions haven't changed. Beneath technology and progress, we still ask the same thing. Who will this person be? And maybe that's why, even today, wives' tales for baby gender remain popular online. They aren't believed in the same way, but they are played with. People take gender quizzes, not as prophecy, but as participation in a timeless human ritual, the sharing of mystery. Philosophers have long said that myths are dreams of the collective. They are the mind of civilization made visible. The myth of gender prediction shows our collective longing for identity, certainty, and control. It exposes how deeply we link meaning to difference, how we divide the world into pairs, male and female, light and dark, order and chaos. But beyond these opposites lies the truth, that such divisions are only stories we tell to make sense of what can be contained. In a way, old wives' tales for gender were our earliest attempts at understanding duality, the balance of forces within life itself. Yin and yang, earth and sky, creation and destruction. To name gender was to name polarity, and to name polarity was to name the universe. Yet in trying to define, we also confine. The myth of prediction didn't just reflect culture, it reinforced it. And that is the paradox of every belief. It both reveals and shapes the believer. When a society changes, its myths evolve. but they never disappear. They shift shape, finding new symbols, new rituals. Today, the wives' tales for gender ring may seem archaic, but their essence survives in something far more modern, the gender reveal. It is no longer the old wife who tells the tale. It's us, telling it again with smoke, color, and spectacle. We've traded superstition for fireworks, yet the story remains the same. The need to know, to define, to control. We are still, at our core, mythmakers searching for meaning and mystery. And the myths we inherit, no matter how strange, always reflect the people we are becoming. Every myth eventually meets its reckoning. The moment when light pierces the fog and reason begins to ask, but is it true? For old wives' tales for gender, that moment arrived quietly, not through confrontation, but through the steady advance of science. It began with the microscope and the stethoscope, to instruments that redefined how we see life. For centuries, the unseen was explained through metaphor, but once the invisible could be measured, mystery became data. Pregnancy, once regarded as a sacred unknown, slowly turned into a biological process. The wives' tales for pregnancy, gender, the ring tests, the belly shapes, the heartbeat rates, began to sound less like prophecy and more like poetry from another age. In the 20th century, the ultrasound machine ended the guessing game. For the first time in human history, we could see the child before birth. And with that image, centuries of superstition began to dissolve. But something strange happened. Even as science dismantled the myths, people didn't let go of them. Why? Because myths don't die when proven false. They die when they stop feeling true. Science told us that the shape of a belly or the pulse of a fetus reveals nothing about gender. But emotion, the oldest language we know, whispered otherwise. The ritual of guessing, hoping, and imagining gave meaning to anticipation. It wasn't about accuracy. It was about belonging. Every wives' tale for gender prediction functioned like a spell, an act that turned waiting into participation. Parents didn't want statistics, they wanted stories. And so, even in hospitals equipped with advanced technology, people still asked the old questions. Do you think it's a boy or a girl? Are you craving sweets? Is your bump round or pointed? Science might have answered the what, but never the why. The wives' tales for gender were about that why, about connection, intuition, and the emotional ritual of preparing for a new life. But science, for all its precision, has a way of sterilizing wonder. It replaces awe with certainty. It measures but rarely marvels. This shift marked a cultural transformation from mythic intimacy to clinical detachment. The grandmother's whisper became the doctor's diagnosis. The glowing hearth became a glowing monitor. And yet, deep down, humans resist a purely mechanical world. We crave the mystical. We want meaning to live alongside truth. That's why even in the age of genetics, the old wives' tales for gender persist, recycled through social media quizzes, TikTok challenges, and gender reveal rituals. They survive not as beliefs, but as nostalgia, a longing for a time when mystery felt sacred and life unfolded in stories, not statistics. But this persistence also reveals a philosophical conflict between two worldviews. The empirical, which seeks to explain life through reason, and the symbolic, which seeks to experience life through meaning. The first gives us control, the second gives us purpose. When these worlds collide, we see the modern paradox of human progress. We know more than ever before, yet we feel less certain about what it all means. This is the silent cost of truth. When myths fade, meaning follows. And so, humanity invents new myths more sophisticated, more modern, but equally symbolic. Just as the wives' tales for gender ring once circled above the womb, now digital algorithms circle above our desires, predicting who we are before we are born, not by pulse, but by pattern. We've replaced folk superstition with technological prophecy, but the structure remains the same. Prediction, validation, revelation. The form changes, the function does not. What once was guessed through the tilt of a belly is now forecasted through a scan of data. Both reflect the same human hunger, to know before we can understand, to predict before we can accept. The old wives' tales for gender might have lost their credibility, but not their relevance, because what they truly represent is not ignorance, it's imagination. The imagination that turns waiting into storytelling, that transforms biology into destiny, that refuses to let the unknown remain unknown. And maybe, in that refusal, lies something essential to being human. We are creatures who would rather tell stories than face silence. Science gives us knowledge, but myth, even an old wives' myth, gives us meaning. And that is why, even in a world illuminated by science, we still gather around the oldest of fires, the fire of wonder, and whisper to each other, do you think it's a boy or a girl? Somewhere in the early 2000s, a quiet idea sparked a cultural wildfire. It began innocently. A couple baked a cake, sliced it open, and revealed pink frosting. A camera clicked. A moment was shared, and suddenly, a private joy became a public performance. The gender reveal was born. Today, gender reveals have become modern rituals of spectacle. Balloons explode in color, smoke bombs fill the air, fireworks burst in pink and blue, and entire families hold their breath as if witnessing prophecy. The irony is striking. In the age of scientific certainty, we have revived the old wives' tales for gender, not as superstition, but as celebration. The gender reveal is not merely a party. It is the ritualization of knowing. It is society's way of transforming the sterile certainty of an ultrasound into something emotionally alive. Symbolic, almost sacred again. Yet beneath the confetti and cheer lies something deeper. The same ancient craving that birthed the wives' tales for pregnancy, gender. The desire to make the unknown meaningful. The need to turn data into destiny. We no longer swing a wedding ring over a belly, we detonate colored powder in the sky. We no longer read omens in the curve of a stomach, we post cinematic drone footage on Instagram. The form has changed, but the psychology remains. At its heart, the gender reveal phenomenon reflects humanity's ongoing struggle between knowing and believing. Even the heart rate wives' tale for gender and the hairline wives' tale for gender echoed those archetypes, masculine vigor versus feminine delicacy. In these reveals, the colors are not just hues, they are identities projected before the child even arrives. That's the paradox. A ritual that began to celebrate life has become, in some ways, a mirror reflecting our cultural discomfort with ambiguity. We still crave the answer, is it a boy or a girl? As though those two options define the totality of being human, we still hold on to the illusion that knowing the gender gives us control, that it helps us prepare, imagine, and label the future. But what does it mean to know something that doesn't yet exist? What are we truly revealing, the baby, or ourselves? Sociologists call this performative anticipation, turning private milestones into public validation. Every gender reveal idea today is designed not for the participants, but for the audience. A spectacle curated for views, reactions, virality. The old village gatherings, where women whispered wives' tales for gender, heart rate, around candlelight, have been replaced by social media's virtual village, where millions watch, comment, and judge. The more we share, the less personal it becomes. The more we reveal, the less we truly know. And yet, behind every explosion of pink or blue lies, a tender truth: humans still need ritual. We may laugh at the old wives' tales for gender prediction, but without realizing it, we've reinvented them in digital form. Our modern rituals use cameras instead of candles, algorithms instead of ancestors, but the intent is the same: to impose narrative on the unknown, to replace anxiety with ceremony. There's something almost tragic about it, and yet, something profoundly beautiful too. Because these rituals, for all their absurdity, still carry love. They are born from excitement, wonder, the desperate wish to connect to something larger than ourselves. They remind us that even in an age of logic, humans remain storytellers. But the question lingers: have these rituals lost their innocence? Gender reveals, once symbolic of unity, have sometimes turned catastrophic, literally. Forest fires, explosions, and accidents have turned celebration into tragedy. The spectacle has outgrown the sentiment. It's as if the myth revived in the age of technology has consumed itself. The pendulum of the wives' tale for gender ring has swung too far. We have mistaken knowing for mastery. We have mistaken spectacle for meaning. And still, beneath the smoke and laughter, the same ancient heartbeat remains. The heartbeat of uncertainty. That primal question, what will the future be? Disguised as boy or girl. Every reveal, every tale, every myth echoes that single human need to bring order to chaos, to name the mystery, to turn fear into festivity. And perhaps, that is why old wives' tales for gender will never truly disappear. They will keep resurfacing as games, as posts, as rituals, in whatever form culture takes next. Because the act of prediction is not about accuracy, it's about hope. We predict not to be right, but to believe we can know what's coming. And that belief, irrational yet deeply human, is what makes us storytellers, seekers, and creators of myth. Even if the myth comes wrapped in pink smoke or blue confetti, we live in an age of data. We can decode DNA, map galaxies, and predict the weather. Yet somehow, we still whisper old wives' tales for baby gender with the same reverence as our ancestors. The baking soda wives' tale for gender circulates in online forums. The heart rate wives' tale for gender is repeated by expectant parents who know it. It's not scientific, but say it anyway. Why? Because belief isn't about truth, it's about comfort. Humans are not logic-driven creatures, we are meaning-driven ones. When science strips away mystery, we rush to replace it with story. The wives' tales for gender prediction survive because they give emotion to what science can only describe. A doctor might tell you the chromosome's 20 or XY, but the story of that child, the soul of who they might become, still feels undefined. Ritual fills that void. The early wives' tales for gender, the wives' tales for gender, heart rate, and the wives' tale for gender ring are all expressions of our instinct to humanize the unknown. They make the abstract intimate. When we say, it's a girl because the heartbeat is faster, what we really mean is, I want to believe I already know her. We tell these stories because they make the waiting bearable. Psychologists call this cognitive closure, the desire to resolve uncertainty as quickly as possible. The unknown triggers anxiety, so we invent answers, even false ones, to feel calm again. The pregnancy wives' tales for gender are less about babies than about control, the comforting illusion that we can predict what's coming, that fate has a pattern we can read if we just look closely enough. But the truth is, we are pattern-making animals living in a chaotic universe. We see faces in clouds, constellations in stars, and meaning in randomness. The wives' tales for gender are just one more reflection of this fundamental impulse. Even now, in the digital age, superstition wears new clothes. Algorithms predict our desires. Data forecasts our choices. We've traded the pendulum of the wives' tale for gender ring for predictive analytics. But the psychological craving is identical. We still want the world to make sense, to unfold according to rules we can understand. That's why even the most rational minds sometimes indulge in the irrational. It's why scientists knock on wood, why skeptics cross their fingers, why parents smile knowingly at old wives' tales for gender prediction quizzes. They know it's just for fun, but it feels sacred in its own way. Because deep down, humans need myth the way the body needs air. Myths give our experiences shape and depth. They transform random events into personal significance. They turn uncertainty into narrative. When a mother hangs a ring over her belly, she's not really asking, will it spin or sway? She's asking, will everything be okay? These small acts of superstition are love in disguise, the love of a parent trying to reach into the unknown and touch the future. Maybe that's why the wives' tales for gender endure even in a rational world. They remind us that knowledge alone isn't enough. We need mystery too. We need the poetry of guessing, the sweetness of wondering, the humility of not knowing everything. Because if we stripped away every myth, every ritual, every illusion of meaning, what would remain? Pure data, cold truth, but no warmth. And so, the myth survives, not because we are foolish, but because we are human. In every wives' tales for gender quiz, every whispered guess, every prediction made in laughter, there is a quiet defiance against the indifference of the universe. It's a way of saying, I believe in connection. I believe in destiny. I believe that something unseen ties us to what's coming. In that sense, wives' tales for gender are not lies. They are metaphors. They are poetry disguised as prediction. And perhaps, that's why they will never fade, because as long as there is uncertainty, there will be stories. And as long as there are stories, there will be belief. In the beginning, before medicine and microscopes, there were stories. They flickered in candlelight, whispered across generations, the wives' tales for gender, the swing of a ring, the curve of a belly, the rhythm of a heartbeat. We built myths not to deceive, but to understand. And even now, centuries later, we have not changed. Our tools are sharper, our screens brighter, but our hearts still seek the same comfort, the illusion that we can know what waits in the dark. The wives' tales for gender were never really about boys or girls. They were about the human relationship with mystery, about the ache of not knowing, and the courage to imagine anyway. We crave certainty because uncertainty reminds us of our limits. It humbles us, and in a world obsessed with answers, humility feels unbearable. So we predict, we test, we reveal, all to silence, that quiet voice that whispers, you do not know. But maybe we were never meant to know everything. Maybe the beauty lies in the wondering. For centuries, the old wives' tales for baby gender offered symbols of faith, a heartbeat, a craving, a glow. They gave form to the invisible. They turned the unknown into something that could be touched, laughed about, shared. Today, we live in the glare of information, and yet, the mystery of life still eludes us. We can name the chromosomes, predict the due date, chart the fetal heartbeat, but we cannot name the laughter that will echo years later. We cannot measure the love that will shape that child's soul. What if the truest gender reveal isn't the burst of color, or the ultrasound image, but the moment years later, when a child speaks their first dream aloud? What if what we call reveal is only ever a beginning? Perhaps that is the lesson these myths have been trying to teach all along, that knowing is not the same as understanding, that knowledge without wonder is hollow, that life, in its purest form, resists prediction. The wives' tales for gender heart rate, the baking soda wives' tale for gender, the hairline wives' tale for gender, they are relics, yes, but they are also reminders. Reminders that humans, in their fragility, sought to weave stories from silence, to find connection in uncertainty. And maybe, that was never a flaw. Maybe that was wisdom disguised as superstition. We once watched the stars for answers. Now, we watch screens. Yet the question remains the same. What lies ahead? The truth is, we will never know. Not fully. And that's what makes life miraculous. The next time you hear an old wives' tale for gender prediction, smile not because it's true, but because it represents something far more enduring than truth. The human desire to hope, to wonder, to believe that the future speaks in signs. In the end, the greatest revelation isn't whether it's a boy or a girl. It's that the mystery itself, the not knowing, is what makes the journey worth taking. Because life, like birth, is not about prediction. It's about possibility.